All right, good morning, everybody. It's 10:30, so let's get started. Can everybody hear us?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So good morning. This is a meeting of the New York State Hearing Aid Dispensing Advisory Board. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Let's go around and do a roll call and introductions. We'll start in Albany. Whitney Clark, I'm the Director of the Division of Licensing Services.
Hi, Dan Shapiro. I'm an attorney with the department, subbing in for David on this. He'll be back.
Denise Tidings, I work in licensing, examination development.
Jody DeLallo, Licensing Services.
And I'm Jim Hines, representing the Commissioner of the State Education Department.
I'm Jonathan Curtin. I'm one of the medical directors in the Department of Health.
Sharon Charlin, Board Coordinator.
In New York City.
Anna Kim, otolaryngology.
Peter Fisher, hearing aid dispenser.
Mary Jo Moore, Licensing Services.
Okay, Buffalo.
Ann Orsini, audiologist, board member.
Okay, so it looks as though we have 3 board members. So we unfortunately do not have a quorum. So we're going to have to skip over the first action item, which is approval of the meeting summary. We'll table that for our next meeting. So our next action item is legal research on revising continuing education, which is Dan. And this was an issue that was discussed at our last board meeting. The Telecoil subcommittee, one of their recommendations was to revise the existing continuing education requirements to require specific hours in telecoils and different technologies.
Right. And what we will do for that, and I think David was undertaking it, is to have a conversation with SED. All right. I'm sorry, I looked at you. I got it, SED. With respect to for audiologists, of course, that's what we're talking about, right?
And dispensers.
And dispensers. Well, dispensers is ours. We'll be working on that. But with SED, perhaps we could arrange for some hours, some time of those 4 hours to be devoted to T-coil, if it isn't already. All right. So I don't know if David's gotten in touch with you yet.
They have not, but I can look into it in terms of our audiologists who are dispensers and what they're, how they fulfill the requirement.
Yeah, that would be great.
Sure.
And I'll have Dave follow up.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, I'll make a note. I'll get myself up to speed on that issue.
So yeah, we're doing some. Yep. Yes, go ahead.
May I address that?
Yes.
This is Peter. Both dispensing audiologists and hearing aid dispensers are required to take 2 courses every 2 years to maintain their registration. One of those courses deals with the laws of New York State. And so we were hoping that the curriculum or the content in that particular CE would be able to enhance the importance of T-coils and loop systems. So we were hoping that a bit of a change in what was required in that course would allow everyone, whether they're an audiologist or a dispenser or, all registered hearing aid dispensers, would then be obligated to have that information.
Okay. So what we can do between now and the next board meeting, David will be reaching out to the education department to have those discussions, and we'll schedule a meeting of the Telecoil subcommittee with David so we can further discuss this and start drafting the required regulation. Okay, and let the record reflect that. Kathleen Cassidy.
Yes, I'm sorry, I'm late.
No problem, good morning. Okay, so moving on to the subcommittee and departmental reports. The first report this morning is our processing report from Jody DeLallo.
Good morning. So as always, there's licensing statistics in your folders. There's the most recent report, and then the report from this time last year. And if you look at total licensees, there's really no big differences between the amount of licensees from last year and this year. So if that's just something you wanted to take a look at, if you were interested, it's broken down by county. shows types of businesses. So it's something you can look at your leisure, but I don't see anything, no glaring differences between the number of licensees. It seems to be consistent. A couple other things that I wanted to mention and may be helpful to the industry. I talked to staff regarding, reasons for rejections when they're processing applications, and they gave me a little bit of information that I thought I would share with the board members. So one of the things that people don't seem to be clear about is once a trainee has concluded their 1-year training and they pass their exams, we get phone calls because I think they may think that they automatically get issued their full license, not really understanding that they have to now submit all that to us and submit another application asking for full licensure. So they see that quite a bit. We could try to clarify that on our website if they don't understand. But if you're talking to people, they won't automatically get full licensure. They have to submit their 12-month training certificate. Their exam results will be on our system, so once we receive the application and verify all the information, we can issue the full dispenser's license. And then one other thing that they mentioned to me is they'll get an application for a trainee that'll come into the office, and so they have to list who's going to be supervising them and at what business they're working at. And many times the person that's supervising them is not associated with the business that they're going to be working. And so they have to send that back and make sure that that supervising dispenser has been added to that business license as listed as being associated with that business. So that's just a couple things that I thought I would share. Another thing, just on a customer service side, so if the processing staff have to return an application, if it's deficient in any way, they return the whole application. We don't hold applications here, but what they've begun to do is scan the deficient application so that if someone calls, they can provide better customer service because they have the entire application in electronic format. So that's it.
Thank you, Jody. Does anyone have any questions? Hi, so moving on, and actually this next report is Jody as well. This is the Exam Education Subcommittee report.
So the subcommittee working on the curriculum, Mark was the facilitator for that. He couldn't make it today, but I believe at the last board meeting, board members or someone from the public maybe had asked for a summary of the changes that were made to the curriculum that the subcommittee worked on. So Mark gave me a list. I didn't have the opportunity to have it added to the folders, but he did provide a list to me, and that's something we could share late after the meeting if necessary. But it looks like they made some simple changes. In the area of infection control, they added a list of commonly used items which require cleaning, sanitizing, and disinfecting or sterilization. They updated some terminology, added some technological definitions, and added common hearing disorders to the curriculum. So this, I believe that when we send the new curriculum out to the instructors, that we can add this list so that the instructors are more clear on where the changes were. Instead of handing off a whole entire curriculum and having them figure out the differences, we could provide this along with the curriculum that we send to the instructors. So, and this is something that maybe we can have Sharon send to the board members if they're interested in the detail of the changes.
Thank you, Jody. You're welcome. Any questions? Okay, so the next item on the agenda is the Telecoil Subcommittee update. As I mentioned earlier, we are going to be scheduling another Telecoil Subcommittee meeting to work on the regulations and to also work on the other recommendations. We're going to be moving forward with updating the sign, the brochure, the purchase agreement, and to come up with a marketing plan to disseminate the information to our licensees. So between now and the next board meeting, the telecoil subcommittee will be working with the department to implement those recommendations. Any questions? Okay, the next item on the agenda is new business. Do any of the board members have new business items they'd like to discuss?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I was wondering if we have any mechanisms in place regarding reciprocity between states and allowing people who are licensed in one state to come and find employment in New York State.
Jody, do you know if we do any existing
We don't have any agreements.
We don't have any current agreements. I know that there was an agenda item that the board was looking at, I want to say it's almost a year ago now, to make changes to the statute to make it easier for people to come into New York State, because currently our statute is fairly restrictive. What I can do is I can pull those statutory provisions and the research we did for the board members back then and circulate it to the board members so you can see what our current requirements are and to see if you're interested in moving forward with the proposed legislative change to make it easier for folks to come into New York.
Okay.
Okay? Does anybody else have any items of new business? No. Okay, so moving on to the public comment period. We'll start in Albany. We have 2 members of the public. Would either of you like to make a public comment?
Please, thank you.
Okay, Art Goosen.
Do I need a mic up here, or should I stay close to this?
Why don't you stay close?
Thank
You can sit.
I can sit. I can sit.
Yeah, the mic is actually up there.
Yeah.
Oh, the mic is in the sky.
It's in the sky. It's a sky mic, yeah.
Well, again, my name is Fred Goosen. I am a practicing hearing aid dispenser in New York State. I've been practicing for over 20 years and registered for over 20 years. I am one of the original drafter representatives on Article 37A. And we don't have cannolis anymore, Dan, so I really need to change that.
That's why I haven't been coming.
I understand. I also have just finished as the territorial governor of the International Hearing Society for New England, and I currently serve on the executive committee of the National Board for Certification in Hearing Instrument Sciences, which is the organization that offers the highest level of hearing instrument sciences training, which goes above the ILE, which is the international exam, goes above the ACA, and it has for many years been considered the highest level of certification available by a certified agency. I think I'm also on that board. Our concerns today are, number one, to thank Mark once again for his great help. We had our conference in Saratoga 2 weeks ago. Over 160 hearing aid dispensers and dispensing audiologists from New York State attended. We delivered 11 and a half hours credits of New York State CEs approved by Mark, as well as 10 and a half hours of international hearing instrument studies CEs, which are required in other states. They require that as well. We had 24 exhibitors at the conference, all of whom brought new information, new technology for us to look at. Unfortunately, HLAA was invited to participate, as we do every year, and they were unable to attend. But we did make a change in our New York State regulation and law course required. And Barbara gave the program, and we included a concentrated presentation relating to that one part of New York State law regs that states that the dispenser shall disseminate information and talk about telecoils and other ALDs. And we made it very clear to and we spent a few minutes on this, making very clear that this should be part of their their praise, and must be part of their working with the client. And as you know from our last meeting, this, we feel, International Hearing Society, also Hearing Healthcare Alliance, that is the most effective and easy way to get information out to the public, because every dispenser or dispensing audiologist must take that 1-hour course. And if we could include within that 1-hour course reference to or requirements for stressing this issue of telecoil use, it would not require legislation. It would not require developing a whole nother CE, and it would, I think, would be a very effective way, because every time that one of the practitioners takes the course, they are reminded and instructed that that dissemination of information is required of them in presentation to a hearing aid dispenser. And we would hope that the board and also the members of the subcommittee would be able to look at that as a very major step. Changing, we've had comments on changing the purchase agreement or the contract for sale. Well, the problem with that is only the persons who purchase the hearing aid would get that. People who do not purchase hearing aid, which may be 60% of the people presented, would. I don't think that would be as effective as making sure that this other statement, that this other presentation must be done. And also, working with HLAA, Hearing Healthcare Alliance, would very much like to revise the brochures and information distributed by the department to see if we can come up with some good, strong language and information contained in that. Those must be given to the public. And also to work on a separate distribution of information on ALDs and telecoils. We are very concerned that if talking about assistive listening devices also must be open to, because there are 4 or 5 separate technologies, and telecoils is only one of them. 90% of the new high-end hearing aids at the present time use Bluetooth. And as a matter of fact, 1 or 2 of the manufacturers of the iPhone have requested from the department in the FDA that the requirement for inclusion of telecoil not be the only program. And we're seeing this used much more in part because the Bluetooth technology is there. And if we take step by step, our concern is, as new technology is developed, if we're continually changing input into the purchase agreement, it's going to become a very lengthy document. And it's already quite lengthy, much longer than any other states, as a matter of fact. So we would hope that we can work with them to make sure the information is distributed and so forth. And quite honestly, any hearing aid dispenser who is touting the use of their instruments will say telecoils, looping is a natural program within this device, so it expands the use of it beyond just hearing. I heard some statements today, and one has to do with, we talked about reciprocity. I'd very much like to work with people, because trying to, Mark and I and Jeff, what is the criteria that can be used to walk by, not necessarily making into agreement someplace else, but the difficulty in judging whether or not someone who has 20 years of experience as a licensed hearing aid dispenser in another state, and who has a record of never having a complaint filed against them, who has been taking the courses, who can provide documentation that they have been an active dispenser in the similar fashions that the grandfathering asked those of us who dispensed before, what have you here? Prove that you've had experience. If we go back, some of these people became licensed professionals 15 years ago. I know we have talked with a couple of people from Florida, and they were asked how many hours was their course, how many months was their traineeship. Well, remember, 18 years ago in New York State, there was no traineeship. 18 years ago in New York State, there was no education requirement. 18 years ago, so I think looking at those records, and we'd love to work with anyone on that to help that, because a lot of people want to come into New York, they want to do business here, they want to open businesses here, they want to start paying New York State taxes, but there's some of them have been delayed by a year because we don't have a quick way to judge whether or not they are competent to come into the state. I'd like to also ask, when we start talking about numbers of registered hearing aid dispensers and registered hearing aid dispensing audiologists, yes, the numbers are the same, but I'd be very interested to know that how many of the current numbers are new dispensers, and how many of the current numbers or the previous numbers are people who have left the profession. Because I think you will see a significant increase in the number of new dispensers who have gone through the courses. There are several organizations here that are hiring and opening offices, Miracle, Beltone, Hearing Health USA. Many new things are proliferating, and I'd very much like to see how many new people are coming into this profession, even though the number may be the same as it was previously. But as always, we're delighted to be included in this group. We can't say enough about Mark and his staff, because that we had 250 people here and there, and we got everything done well. And I'm going to send him some information later if he yells at me loud enough. But thank you very much for the opportunity to talk today. And if there are any questions, we Hearing Healthcare Alliance, we stand ready to give you some information on the practices that are currently being conducted in the state.
Thank you, Fred. Barbara?
Hello, I am Barbara Ahern. I am retained by Fred and the Hearing Healthcare Alliance of New York to be their legislative and governmental representative. I work on a variety of issues. Some of them overlap between legislation and the items that are considered by this board. But today I just wanted to add a quick footnote to what Fred said. He was good enough to give me credit for delivering, once again, the course in New York State laws, regulations, federal and New York State laws, regulations, and professional conduct at the annual meeting of the Hearing Healthcare Alliance that was held at the beginning of June. This is what I use when I develop the course. This is put out by the Department of State, and it is I understand this comes through Mark, so it is a list of all the things that should be covered in this course. And as a result of the discussions that were held in this body for the last year and longer, and the legitimate concerns about making sure that people who are interested in the purchase of a hearing aid do get the information that dispensers are already required to give them about assisted listening devices and telecoils under existing laws and regulations. I specifically included that, although it is not on this list, and I think this is what we were hoping the department would look at modifying a lot easier, faster, and simpler than trying to enact a new regulation. So I included it anyway, and to my surprise, there was actually a lot of dialogue among the dispensers in the audience, because I also told them why I was telling them very specifically about this obligation that they had, that it was covered, and the importance of it to the people that they were serving. So I think that's a good place for it, and as Fred indicated, anything that I can do as someone who has delivered this course to modify the requirements so that this does fit in here, I'm happy to do that on behalf of the Alliance.
Thank you, Barbara. Okay, do we have any members of the public in New York City?
No.
No.
No? Okay, Buffalo? No.
No.
Okay. Okay, so time for a motion to adjourn. Do I have a motion? Motion. Do I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, meeting adjourned.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.